Well, hey there. How's it going, guys? Going to hang out here for just a couple seconds to allow some more people to show up, and then we'll get rolling. So, you might know my name is Jason McClellan. You're watching this video, you probably know. But my goal today really is to just give you a little bit of an overview, or not an overview, I guess just a little bit of teasing, some highlights of some things that we at Rogue Planet have planned for the coming year, and also to field some of your questions that you might have. And really, the true purpose of doing this today is something I really enjoy doing, is testing out new technology and software and nifty tools here and there that can help deliver messages and do things in new ways. So that's what I'm doing today, and always exploring the best uses for communicating with audiences. And of course, that's always trial and error. So that's what I'm doing today. And again, at Rogue Planet, we have at least the desire and hopes to do many more of these in the future in various contexts and for various purposes. So today, that's what I'm going to do. Just talk a little bit about what we have planned for Rogue Planet in 2018, and then take some questions. Cool. All right. Well, if you don't know, Rogue Planet is a company that we started, I'd say probably back in 2013 is when it was actually born. But we've done a few different things here and there over the years. And really what it is, it's our media company where we can do whatever we want. It's where we publish books. It's where we produce videos, podcasts, all the good things that we enjoy. And it tends to focus a lot on all things strange. So you probably know I am very, very much involved in the UFO field. It's something that I'm passionate about and have devoted a lot of time to. So UFOs are near and dear to my heart, and a lot of other strange topics too. And Rogue Planet is going to be diving a little deeper into other paranormal topics in 2018. I can tease right now that there are probably going to be a few ghost hunts happening that will definitely be recorded and shared with everybody on our website, rogueplanet.tv. That's where all of our stuff is, all of our various shows. Talk a little bit about some of that stuff. Books. Last year, I guess a little more than a year ago, we jumped into book publishing. That's something that we talked about doing for a while and finally took the leap, spent the time to do it. And, my book was the first one we did, and that came out technically in 2016, at the tail end of 2016. And if you haven't seen me post about it or read about it, it's this book right here. And it's called Only Weirdos See UFOs, An Introduction to the Public's Misperception of Unidentified Aerial Phenomena and Extraterrestrial Life. And of course, you can get that on Amazon. But that is the first book we put out. We put out some other, I guess, lighter books, little pamphlets, or with information that put in ebook form. But we've got some other novels and books in the works. I know I'm personally working on a couple of books. I'm always working on a few books, but will they ever see the light of day? Who knows? Who knows? That's always the question. But working on a couple right now. We'll see how they take shape. I don't know if we'll see any of those finished in 2018. My plan is to have at least one of those done by the end of 2018. And I guess the one that I will tease a little bit is a book that has something to do with UFOs, sure, ghosts, sure, and the legal system. Yeah. Not terribly surprising, being that I'm married to an attorney/law professor. So interesting things coming that way. So fun project there. Tell you more about it as it develops. So that's what we're doing with books, and certainly want to do a lot more collaboration. That's something that we're very big on at Rogue Planet and want to do more collaborative works, whether that is with books or, next thing I'll tease, documentary. We've talked about this before, but that's something that we're going to start doing too, more video content at Rogue Planet. Going to start production here pretty soon on our first documentary. And if you happen to come to the 2018 International UFO Congress that takes place in Fountain Hills, Arizona in February, I'll be there. Hopefully Ryan Sprague will be there. And we'll be doing a little bit of work on a future documentary. I will certainly tease more details about that as the time comes, but if you're at the International UFO Congress, we might have to meet up and talk and maybe get you on camera to talk about some UFO related things. So that's something that's coming up. The International UFO Congress, I mentioned that, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Yes, I do plan to be there. Like I said, Ryan Sprague will probably be there with me. We'll see how much of the conference we'll be able to be there for. We both have to look at our schedules and things like that. I most likely will just be there for the weekend, but again, when I figure out what I'm doing and when I'll be able to be there, I'll certainly post that. So anybody there would love to meet you if I haven't met you. And if I've met you, of course, I want to see you again. Always love talking to people there. And that's the greatest thing about that conference and other conferences, is just being able to meet other people and share stories and things like that. So looking forward to the International UFO Congress. If you want to know the specific date on that, I don't remember at the moment. I think it starts on Valentine's Day maybe, but check out ufocongress.com. That's where you have information about that. Let's talk a little bit about podcasts, because that's something we do at Rogue Planet and something we love a lot. So obviously we have our UFO focused podcast called Unknown, and that's something that really going to hopefully ramp up a little more than it has been in 2018. Getting more into the roundtable format, because that's something I enjoy and I think you enjoy too. It's something different than just your typical hearing somebody retell a story or interview a guest. I think all of those things are important, and there's certainly elements that I like to incorporate periodically. But I think the roundtable element and that type of show is interesting to get more voices involved, hear different viewpoints, and it just makes for a more interesting show. So really hope to do more of that with Unknown, but we have our fingers crossed, and we're trying to work on possibly reviving our Rogue Planet podcast. And if you followed Rogue Planet since the beginning, you might be familiar with the Rogue Planet podcast. The Rogue Planet podcast was a podcast we started, and that involved really friends hanging out. Me, Maureen Ellsbury, Ryan Sprague, and Caleb Hanks, all hanging out and talking about all things strange, dealing with a lot of pop culture things, talking about sci-fi TV shows and movies, books, music, things like that. A lot of focus on monsters and local lore, things like that. So that's something that I'm super interested in, and so are my friends I mentioned. So we're going to work on that, because I think that is something different. It's a deviation from UFOs, which is great, because UFOs aren't the only thing I love. They're certainly my focus and where I try to devote most of my time, but I have other interests too, and Rogue Planet is focused on more than just UFOs. So although I think it's important to have a dedicated UFO show, which is what Unknown is, see about offering the Rogue Planet podcast again to have more broad appeal and have a little fun too with some friends. Podcasts are great for catching up with friends, and that's what I enjoy about them the most. Spacing Out. If you haven't heard, Spacing Out has been revived under the Rogue Planet umbrella. This is the show that Maureen and I started back when we were both with Open Minds, and we've sort of soft brought it back to this point. We've done a couple episodes, and obviously we don't both work right next to each other like we did when we were at Open Minds. In fact, we're both in different states. So obviously that presents some challenges. But technology is amazing, and it's fun to experiment with technology, as I said at the beginning. So we've figured out and practiced and tested some different ways to do it. And, we've got a pretty good way down of doing it. And so our plan is to, again, ramp up production of that and offer more episodes than we're currently doing. Right now, we're loosely on a one a month schedule because that's the best we can do with our individual schedules at the moment. But with luck, we'll be able to ramp that up. It's something that I know she wants to do, and I want to do a lot more too in the coming year, is more substantial episodes with some real investigations in them, some travel, some pre-produced packaged content to roll into those shows. Because we really want to get back into getting in the field, going out on the road, and meeting with people in person. I mean, Skype and other technology is fantastic. You can do a whole lot, and it makes for a great presentation. But for us personally, and for you as well, I think a story and a video, when you watch it, is so much better when you see that physical interaction, when people are actually at a place or physically talking to a person, and not just a Skype interview or something less informal or less personal. So try to do that. Keep you posted on that. Yeah, man, boots on the ground. That's what we want to do. Maureen has been pushing that and really twisting my arm for a couple years now to get my butt in gear and get out and do that. And we really want to do that for you. So we'll see what happens. I want to remind you that Rogue Planet has a new Facebook group. That is Rogue Planet TV. Just go on Facebook and search Rogue Planet TV and you should find us. And that is a great place for our Rogue Planet community, for you to participate in discussions, conversations about all the things we talk about and do at Rogue Planet. So anything related to UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, anything strange, anything space related, or anything that interests you, because, you guys are our friends and family and our community. So, we don't know what it is that, you're dying to hear about unless you share that with us. And the Facebook group is the best place for you to do it. North Carolina. Hey, Alan, how are you? Yeah, see, it's funny because I feel weird. I'm wearing this zip-up hoodie right now. I'm in Phoenix, and it's like 80 degrees right now, but my house is, for some reason, extremely cold. It's a 1950s block construction house, and it seems to be well insulated. And the temperature just recently dropped in the last few days, down or rose into the 80s, but the house is still very cold. So I could just walk outside and warm up very quickly, but no, I'm wearing my hoodie, so can pretend I'm on the East Coast with all you friends. Yay, Maureen just posted the link. Good. So let's see. What else do I want to talk about Rogue Planet before I take some questions? Oh, you know what? We've talked about this. I think we mentioned it on Spacing Out and certainly on Unknown, but Rogue Planet has a physical mailing address now. So if you happen to, for whatever reason, have any desire to send us love notes or hate mail or anything else, we have a mailing P.O. box that you can send stuff to. So there it is, Rogue Planet, 1934 East Camelback Road, number 120, Phoenix, Arizona, 85016. So feel free to shoot us mail for all of you old schoolers who like to send physical mail. We love physical mail as well as email, but yeah, I'm an old school guy who remembers the joy of like signing up for fan clubs or band road teams and things like that, where you would actually get physical things sent to you in the mail. That was the greatest. And again, I'm talking all my dreams right now. That's ideally what I would like to do more with Rogue Planet, and send you stuff as well, because who doesn't like getting stickers and awesome crap from the stuff you love in the mail? It's a nice surprise. So that's the mailing address. You can find that on rogueplanet.tv on our contact page as well. So I guess that's really all I really wanted to talk about with Rogue Planet today. Yeah, that's our State of the Planet address, which is not very exciting at the moment. But like I said, 2018, we've got big plans. Plans don't always happen the way you plan, but we have hopes and dreams. Um, uh, Maureen keeps trying to get me to drop more hints. Um, Rhymes with bore. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Maureen. I need better hints. All right. So I'll take questions now. Was it really 2011 that we met, Ellen? Holy cow. I don't even remember 2011. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I was involved with the Congress for maybe 6 years, I want to say. And I have to be honest, all those 6 years are a blur. Like, I couldn't distinguish one year from the other because they all kind of blended together. The first year was terrifying because we were trying a lot of new things and we moved it from one location to a new location. Um, but second year kind of knew everything to replicate from the first year and things to change. Then after that, it was all the same event, but we had some good times. So yeah, what Maureen wants me to tease, and we've teased this already a little bit on Facebook, but keep your eyes open. We will, in the very near future, I will say that in the very near future, we'll be launching a Rogue Planet store. So on rogueplanet.tv, we will have a store with all sorts of crap that you can buy. Yeah, that's my nice way of saying it. Now, we're going to have T-shirts. We're going to have, obviously that's where you'll be able to buy our books, movies, anything we do. So we'll have that up very soon. And obviously we'll post it as soon as it's up. And we'll probably even, Maureen and I together, will do a Facebook Live to announce that and show you guys around a little bit at some of the stuff we'll have available. So, Helen says, me and Maureen were doing all the work at the Congress. Yeah, that was the fun part and the not fun part of being involved in running a UFO conference because again, we were a very small team trying to accomplish big things. And, I love being in that environment. But that was super challenging for us because the entire event, you run around like a chicken with its head cut off. And there's so much you want to do, people there speaking who you want to hear what they have to say. You want to listen to the lectures. There are friends, colleagues, and other people that you've met over the years that you'd love to spend time with and catch up. But you just can't do that when you're running an event because there's always stuff to do. So, and you're usually up for 20 hours or so and lucky if you get any sleep at all. So even when you do have the 30 seconds to a minute to say hello to somebody, you're kind of a mindless zombie, and you probably won't remember that you even had the conversation with them. And you feel like an ass because you've got to like cut them off and say, oh, sorry, nice to meet you, got to go. So there's really no time for that interaction that I said is so great about, conferences. So yeah, hopefully, I mean, I got to spend a little more time with people last year when I was at the Congress, and hopefully I'll be able to spend more time this year too, but like I said, it's just going to be the weekend most likely when I'll be there. But if you do see me there, please stop me and force me to say hello, and I'll most likely have time to get a drink with you. All right, let's do some questions. Oh man, I see Lynn said she misses the magazine so much. Yeah, Open Minds magazine. It was a fantastic magazine that we certainly were a big part of at Open Minds, and man, the best UFO magazine ever. It was so good, and I think you can still find old issues of that. Some fantastic content in there, and hopefully we'll be able to revive some of that content in various formats in the near future. Oh, no more hugs. Yeah, no. Alejandro was certainly the person who always promised hugs at the Congress. I sort of got roped into that. I never promised hugs, but I won't deny hugs if somebody comes up and requests a hug. So happy to oblige the hugs. Where did I get my I Want to Believe poster? So that was actually a Christmas present I think that was from my wife. Yeah, I don't remember exactly where she got it, but they're easy to find. And it's not even the real one. Not going to point that out because it's embarrassing, but I love it. Just reading to make sure I didn't miss any important questions here. Ooh, good question. So, thoughts on the latest news with Tom? So, that, of course, is referring to Tom DeLonge. And I've got a lot to say about that, but won't really go too much into it um, because, let's see. See, that's kind of fun. So, if you're watching, you see I just added the question right on the screen. And again, this is why I'm doing this, so I can test new products and see how they work. That's pretty fun. Cool. All right. So thoughts on the news with Tom. So many of you probably know that both Maureen and I worked for Tom DeLonge for a period of time. And before To the Stars launched, Tom called us and asked us to um, basically create content for him to build up his website before the website went live. And so we wrote all sorts of stories for him about UFOs and other paranormal topics. Um, so, and we interviewed Tom back in 2012, and that was something that I worked more than a year on to get that interview to happen. So we interviewed him on our show Spacing Out. But what really prompted that is because I was very familiar with Tom and his whole history with UFOs and UFO research, and he had a website for a period of time called Strange Times. That was a news aggregator that was just posting headlines, UFO related headlines, paranormal related headlines, and a lot of the content that was being posted on that site was stuff that I and others were writing at Open Minds. So developed a relationship with Tom over the years, and that's how that all happened. So I'm a little biased probably when it comes to talking about the latest news with Tom, but and I've certainly talked about it before on podcasts and things, and I'll talk about it much more very soon because many more things are going to happen. We're just at the beginning of all of this, but I will say that I stand up and applaud Tom DeLonge for his efforts, his passion, and for what he's accomplished. I don't pretend to know, the validity of anything that's coming out. I don't pretend to know the implications of it. I do pretend to know, and even more than that, I'm pretty confident that I know Tom's intentions are not money driven. They're not, anything ill intentioned. He is a passionate individual, and he's doing what he does because he is passionate about the subject and genuinely wants to find answers. That I do know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think any effort is a good effort. And when you can manage to secure high-ranking, former military and government officials to be on a team to want to look into UFOs, that's pretty awesome. We need more of that. So, even if nothing more comes from it, I think having more people involved always helps. It's certainly nice to have people in these official positions who held official positions um, on the team, joining the effort to search for answers. When I have a problem is when said people come forward and start claiming to, have answers to all the questions. Um, rather than saying it's a possibility or this is what we know based on things that we personally did. Because everybody guesses. There's all sorts of guessing and speculation that goes on. That's just, rampant in UFO research. So I really think the most important thing with the whole Tom thing unfolding right now is to wait and see. Because there's going to be a lot more that comes out. And we as individuals have to look at that information as it's presented to us and make of it whatever we want. It's up to us. We can listen to what other experts and researchers have to say about that, listen to their opinions and their insights based on their research and their particular knowledge. But at the end of the day, you have to make up your own mind and decide what that means to you in your search for answers. So I think it's cool. I think a lot of interesting and important information is going to come from it. And certainly already, I mean, we found out that although they've actively told us, no, we don't, for so many years, we found out the Pentagon, at least for a period of time, and probably still does, were actively looking into UFOs, which they should. But, these little things are changing UFO history, and plenty of people want to poo-poo them, and that's fine. That's up to them to not be impressed or be disappointed by what they're hearing because it doesn't, rise to the level of whatever they were expecting. I was a little more than disappointed in people in the UFO field who are proclaiming some grand disclosure had happened when nothing's been disclosed. Like, all we know is that officially the Pentagon had a UFO study from 2007 to 2012. That's good, that is good, and that is something that is kind of earth-shattering in our world of UFO research because, again, it's something that was actively denied by the government for so many years, and here they are saying, okay, we had an official investigation program, a recent investigation program. That is, it's big news. That is news, and we should pay attention to that. But it wasn't disclosure. There were so many people, ecstatic, and I felt bad for them. Don't get me wrong. I'm very sensitive to the ridicule factor, and that's something that I'm going to be dealing with a lot in the coming months, and I'll share more about that with you later. But just this eagerness of people to hear this news and then say, finally, it's the validation we've been looking for. Now my friends and family won't make fun of me anymore. And, that was really sad to me because I understand and feel that ridicule is there, that the giggle factor is very much alive and, is detrimental to a lot of people. But what we learned, the information that was given to us, wasn't any sort of disclosure from the government about extraterrestrials existing, about UFOs being extraterrestrial spacecraft. It wasn't anything for people to go, oh, wow, you were right all along. I'm sorry, I won't make fun of you anymore. That hasn't happened yet. And it's probably not ever going to happen to the level that a lot of people hope it will. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I've never been somebody who preaches or promises that disclosure is going to happen because I don't think it will. And even if it does, people won't believe it. As we saw with this, we had a government, basically a government-sanctioned answer saying that we researched, we investigated UFOs for a period of time. And there were plenty of people in the UFO field who have always said, yeah, the government lies, don't believe anything they say, and then the government says it, and they're like, yay, finally they told us the truth. Well, it's what you wanted to hear. We don't know if it's the truth. But also, there were plenty of people saying, oh, it's the government, they're obviously lying, this is false information. Everybody's going to have a different take on whatever happens. So I can't urge you enough, suggest strongly enough to make your own decisions. We all have to do that. It's up to us. Yes, belief is a big part. We have to choose what sources we want to listen to and how we're going to let that affect how we view certain things and how we move forward from that. So there we go. My brief thoughts on the latest Tom news. Again, there's going to be so much more coming from that, and I'll be happy to discuss that much more as the year progresses. All right. So, what do I know about the Garrison, Utah UFO crash of 1953? So, I know an event, an incident that I did look into, but I will be completely honest with you. I don't remember anything about it, and I don't know what prompted me to look into it either. But I know when I was looking at UFO crashes, that's one that I did some digging into. But I'm sorry, I'll have to dive back into that one. UFO crashes fascinate me, and that plays a big part too in the whole To the Stars Academy saga that's unfolding, and some of what we'll be developing in the coming year. Because one of the big questions that people have is about that um, extraterrestrial recovered material, this UFO material that was recovered, that was hinted at by the New York Times article that Robert Bigelow stores in a warehouse in Las Vegas at Bigelow Aerospace. So, number one, I said this before, but I think people read a lot more into that than actually exists, because all we know about that material to this point. Again, more will be told to us soon in the coming months, but all we know is that part of this program that contracted with Robert Bigelow said that Bigelow altered one of his warehouses to house recovered material. Number one, that doesn't mean that the government recovered it. It doesn't mean that it was recovered during their investigation period. They specifically say that Bigelow had that, and Bigelow made the modifications. Bigelow had been doing UFO investigations and research before being contracted by the U.S. government. So Bigelow had it, and he said this was recovered from a UFO crash. That's the information that was presented to them. It doesn't mean that they confirmed that it was recovered from an extraterrestrial spacecraft. So again, one of those wait and see moments. It's certainly possible, but it's jumping to conclusions at this point until we have more information to find out, whatever testing was done on those materials, who did the testing, all the fun things we get to deal with in looking at evidence and making our personal determinations on what we believe. But yeah, UFO crash is a big part of that. I'm sorry I don't have a good answer for your question, but yeah, I'm definitely getting more into UFO crashes in this year. Yeah, so I agree with you, Joe. I mean, there's been so many people who have said this. There's never going to be real disclosure by the government about, certainly about history, and Peter Levenda is somebody I talked to about this many times, and he said it very nicely that, the government is never going to disclose what they know, everything they know about UFOs, because there's no margin in it for them. They would have to explain the past 50 years, and they're certainly not going to do that. So, you know, I'm sure we'll get bits and pieces here. I'm sure certain things will be declassified and released to us, but it's all, going to be bits and pieces here. It's certainly not going to tell the whole story, whatever that story may be. So, a wait and see. It's frustrating waiting to see, especially when, there's a potential for some pretty exciting stuff, just like sitting there waiting for us to hear about it. But got to practice patience, and I'm not always good at that. More questions or break in questions, because it gives me time to drink my beer before it gets warm. Good way to find the truth is to ask a good psychic medium. They can see everything. That's interesting, Joe. So I've never gone to a psychic medium myself. I've heard varying results, but and it's not necessarily something that I'm necessarily on board with, but I don't discount it, not at all. I certainly think there could be something there. All right, a question about Men in Black. Men in Black, supernatural or other? So Men in Black is interesting. I know there are some fascinating stories out there about Men in Black, and certainly some that would lead you to believe that they're not exactly human. Um, Again, I would just be offering a guess here because I don't have any personal experience with the Men in Black, and that's something that I've been asked so many times over the years because of my involvement in the UFO field, and certainly during my tenure at Open Minds, we were pretty deep in stuff, and that's what we did day in day out, and we had some, I guess, interesting people sometimes who would show up at the office or kind of be a little odd at events, um, but never anything that I would classify as Men in Black or anything that I felt as either extraterrestrial or government pressure or threats of any kind to watch what I say or stop doing what I was doing or trying to feed me information to deliver. Never had that experience. Certainly nothing credible. There was one instance when we happened to be doing we were on the radio in Phoenix, and during that time we were doing Open Minds radio over the air in Phoenix, and Alejandro Rojas was interviewing Stan Romanek. And Stan Romanek, being Stan Romanek and doing what Stan Romanek does, started acting weird and claiming to hear noises on the phone line or something. Connection started getting garbled and weird. And then a voice came on the line and said, "You better watch what you say," or something like that. And then the line went dead. At the time it happened, I remember just kind of looking at Alejandro, and I think Maureen was there too, and just kind of had this look of, what the hell was that? Kind of weird, but I certainly don't think it was anything government related, and that's all I'll say about that. While I'm waiting for some more questions, I guess I will entertain you with my latest UFO sighting. So I this past weekend went to San Diego, and I've seen several UFOs anytime I drive to San Diego, um, and I think there's a good reason for that. But um, I was driving in the early morning hours. I left Phoenix at, I'm trying to remember now, it was probably either 5 or 6 in the morning. Um, and I'd gotten just beyond Gila Bend, I think. And I noticed a bright light in the sky. And I keep driving toward it. And I look at it. It's this lone light in the sky. Looks very much like a planet. And so as I'm driving, I'm assuming that it's a planet. I keep my eye on it, but I assume it's a planet. It's not moving at all that I can tell. I'm driving and the road is going up and down and winding around. So I wouldn't be able to tell really if it was moving with any degree of certainty. But to me, it looked pretty stationary. I'm driving. I see it in the sky for a long time and it hasn't really moved. So again, reaffirming my assumption that it's a planet. As I get closer, I notice it starts appearing to be closer to the ground. Not that it's really changing in altitude, but it's certainly lower in the sky, lower on the horizon than a planet would be. Well, that's interesting. Because it seemed to happen pretty quickly, and I don't know if, as I was driving, I was changing elevation or what happened, but I was all, that's interesting. That's not a planet. So I kept going, and I could tell that as I was getting closer, I was getting closer to it. You don't get closer to a planet, not without your spaceship. So I was getting closer to this object in the sky. It was just a stationary light in the sky. So when I approached it, I was getting almost directly under it, and I was leaning forward, looking out my windshield, trying to look at this thing as I'm driving. And I probably should have pulled over, but I had places to be. But I looked up at this thing, and it was definitely a solid object, and it had multiple lights underneath it. I couldn't tell exactly how many lights. I'm going to say probably about four. Four lights, and this thing was probably rectangular in shape, though not conclusively, because again, it was basically completely dark outside. So that's just a guess. And see, being somebody who reads and hears a lot of UFO reports, I get frustrated by witnesses who say with certainty things about UFOs, especially ones that happen in not so good visibility situations. But it was probably rectangular-ish with four lights in probably a straight line underneath it. So as I drove, there was a rest area 1 mile away from when I passed directly under this thing. So I said, perfect. I'll stop at that rest area. I'll turn around and spend more time staring at this thing. So in the time it took me to drive under this thing, get to the rest area 1 mile away, I get out of my car, turn around, there's no light in the sky. And this rest area was in a straight line, no noticeable change in elevation, no mountains, nothing like that would get in the way. The sky was clear. It wasn't overcast or anything. So I have no idea where this object went. It was clearly something in the sky, but in the time it took me to drive 1 mile, and I was probably driving at that point 70 miles an hour, gone. Completely gone. Nothing in the sky. So that leads me to believe that either, strangely, it might have had lights just on sort of one side of it that I would have seen as I approached it, but not after I'd passed it. I have no idea, but certainly interesting. But I will say that on that route from Phoenix to San Diego, the reason there are a lot of UFO sightings, and certainly a lot of the ones I've seen, is because the heavy border patrol activity. And there are a lot of drones and these aerostat radar blimps that Homeland Security uses, and they look strange. Now, I don't know what they look like at night, and I haven't been able to, in my brief research, find out what their appearance is at night or if they have lights or anything. I know during the day, some of the ones they use that are weird and certainly caught me off guard, and this actually was in 2012 when Maureen and I were going to San Diego to interview Tom DeLonge. We pulled over on a freeway because we saw a strange object in the sky that was just sitting there motionless. I mean, it was kind of swaying back and forth, but pivoted on one single point. We had cameras, we zoomed in on it and everything, and then did research later. And the strange thing about this was, it was one of those UFOs that has a weird, interesting description sound or name, and that would goldfish. It was goldfish shaped. So we're all, yeah, we report this UFO. It's going to be sounding weird because we report a goldfish shaped UFO. So what it turned out to be was one of these aerostat radar blimps. They're really shaped like a goldfish cracker. Basically, these big white blimps. So they look completely bizarre. You look at it and say, oh, that's not a normal blimp, or that's not a drone, that's not an airplane. So it had us scratching our heads for a while, but eventually we were able to figure out what it was. And come to find out, Homeland Security uses a lot of these things, especially close to the border. But what I saw this weekend, I have no idea what it was. I assume it was something related to Homeland Security slash Border Patrol, but I don't know. I don't know. Hey, Joe. Any more questions, guys? I'll wrap this up soon. Don't want to go too long. But like I said, we're going to be doing more of these this year for sure. Certainly when we announce our store on Rogue Planet, and just to keep dialogue going throughout the year, because we have the technology to do this type of thing and do it with multiple people too. So we'll be able to do live roundtable discussions too. So not only will we do that on our UFO podcast Unknown, but we'll be able to do it here on Facebook Live too. So we'll be able to interact in real time and field questions too. Again, rogueplanet.tv is our website where we post everything we do, all of our shows. That's where all the information will be about any new books we have coming, about the documentary that we'll be working on. So let's see. Question from James. What technology do you believe the U.S. hiding at this present time for national security reasons? Boy, that would just be a giant, awesome guess, right? Thinking about bizarre and wildly awesome technology that we don't have. I mean, the technology we know about is pretty incredible. So trying to imagine technology that's even beyond that is pretty, I don't know. I don't know if I can think that crazy, because a lot of what we see in sci-fi actually does exist. And specifically, I think about space propulsion systems. There's so many different space propulsion systems out there that actually exist and are being tested right now, but they're not really in use. They're not being utilized for current missions, for current spacecraft, but the technology exists. So I suspect, and because of a lot of what we sort of know with the government's involvement in space, that some of that stuff is being tested out currently, because there have been a lot of launches in recent years where government spacecraft have been launched and tested for years on end in space. New propulsion systems tested. I know twin ion engines were just being experimented with a few years ago now. And for those of you who don't remember, twin ion engines are what power TIE fighters from Star Wars. Yes, twin ion engines are a real thing. So, man, I don't know. I don't know what technology is being hidden, and certainly I'm sure there is, because a lot for national security purposes is withheld from the public and used for defense purposes. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but certainly the case. I think propulsion systems are the biggest thing that exist. Incredible propulsion systems that the government is experimenting with that we don't know about. Just my thoughts. All right, Joe. Which country or place is a hotspot at the moment? Well, I think every place is a hotspot, and this is always my answer to that question. I think no matter where you go, if you have the patience, you're going to see something strange. We're talking about specifically UFOs here. Other things, I think strange things are all over the place too. You can go looking for those if you like. But UFOs, really, they're just, in my personal experience, they're kind of everywhere all the time. It does take patience. I don't, and maybe that's why people like Stephen Greer and others have their methods telling you to just sit there and meditate and go through a procedure and then you'll see a UFO. But I've never had to do that. Maybe it's good for some people, and hey, it might work. But in my experience, it's not necessary. I think if you take the time invest the time, have the patience, sit there and stare at the sky. Yeah, it sounds super fun, right? But if you just sit there and stare at the sky, you're going to see something that you won't be able to explain. There's so much stuff going on in our skies all the time. I can only speak specifically for the US and specifically the Southwest US because that's where I am and that's where I've seen the most things in my life. And certainly the weather is usually pleasant. So that enables you to go outside and spend significant time staring at the sky looking for things. Um, but I have a feeling if the weather were better in other parts of the world, it would happen more often too. But really, it comes down to patience and looking. Um, in terms of hotspots, you're talking about a place that has all sorts of weird strangeness going on, like a Skinwalker Ranch or the just a lot of regions in Utah in particular. There are plenty of those, and really, the way you find out about those is by talking to people who live in areas, and that's something that's hugely fascinating to me as local lore, hearing different legends and stories from people in different regions of the world, different locales, different cities, because that stuff exists all over the place. And I know the Great Lakes area, Michigan, and some other places around there are known to be extremely crazy, all sorts of strange. So, that's a place high on my list, the Great Lakes region, to do some investigation and talk to people because there are some wild stories from there. But to really answer your question, I think every place is a hot spot. You just have to look. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here soon. I've been going for almost an hour, which is probably too long for live, but I appreciate you humoring me and allowing us to try this out. Tell you what we're going to be up to in the year, and hopefully we'll bring more of this to you. Again, rogueplanet.tv is our website where all of our stuff is, and like I said, there'll be announcements in the coming year about new books, a documentary. The documentary will probably be the thing we'll announce first because we're going to start on some production with that at the International UFO Congress in February. Let's see what else. Our store will be launching our Rogue Planet store very, very, very soon. That'll be the first thing that we'll announce. So let's see. Got a question here about remote viewing. So let me say something about that. So Greg, what are your views on remote viewing? So remote viewing is fascinating to me because I know I've read so many stories about remote viewing, and a lot of credible people seem to take this seriously. And I know that the government, our government, U.S. government specifically, is very interested in remote viewing. And a lot of interesting things have been claimed to have been seen through remote viewing. I'm skeptical, because you're relying on one person saying something, and it's usually things that can't really be validated. So again, it comes down to faith, to your personal belief. Are you going to believe what that person says? Because most likely we're not going to be able to validate what they say, certainly anytime soon. Things like, structures on the moon, which, I personally think is kind of silly because unless you're talking about the far side of the moon, which yes has been imaged, but people want to doubt the source of that imaging, think people are covering things up. I get that. But talking about the visible side of the moon, go outside with a decent camera. You can see the surface for yourself. Nikon has a cool camera called the Coolpix. I think it's a P90 or something like that they market as something you can shoot the moon with. And seriously, you can hand hold it and zoom and get amazing shots of the surface of the moon. So that's just a camera. So, I mean, it's something visible to us. You can go out, and if you see a structure on there that isn't just a blob through a shitty camera, then good for you. But, again, it comes down with specifically the remote viewing, comes down to how much you want to believe that person, and are you going to be satisfied with most likely never being able to validate what that person says. I think there could possibly be something to it, but it's not something I have personal experience with, and it hasn't really been validated for me. So, just my opinion. Thanks for the question. All right, guys, I'll take one more question and then I will leave you alone. Doesn't have to be about UFOs either. Hey, Terry, good to see you, bud. Yeah, there are cool cameras out there, and yeah, I didn't believe what I was reading about that Nikon Coolpix. I think it's the P90. Um, Seriously, like they were in their marketing materials saying it's a camera you could shoot the moon. So yeah, right. I mean, it's a forget what they call it. It's like a super zoom. It's a fixed lens camera, but it's a super zoom. And it was all, yeah, right. That piece of junk is going to be able to take any sort of usable shot of the moon, especially handheld. But they were showing these guys going out, zooming in, and just holding the camera and getting crystal clear images of the moon. Well, I had the opportunity to use that camera for a job last year, and it was amazing. No tripod, just holding it in my hands, zooming, and I'm shaking all over the place. But the photos it took were unreal. Like you could see all the craters. It was awesome. So for a space geek like me, I was pretty happy. I'm sure any voyeur would be very happy with that camera too, but that's another story. All right, James, that's a great question for me to end on. So, where do you think we will be UFO, UAP, knowledge wise in 5 years' time? Any the wiser? Man, I certainly hope so. I hope progress will have been made and, we'll have more usable information. That's something that, people grumble about in the UFO field, the fact that it's a frustrating field. It really is. We have so many questions, we want so many answers, and they just don't come. And after so much research, after so many thousands and thousands and thousands of witness reports and sightings, you know, where are we? Where has that gotten us? And to think, what information could we possibly get, and how can that information be acquired to, in 5 years, leave us in a better place to have more knowledge. It's hard to think about what could be so different about the next 5 years from the past 5 years, but I'm optimistic. I think things are progressing the way they should. I do think that not as rapidly as it should, but gradually the ridicule factor is decreasing. We're seeing many media outlets around the world covering the UFO topic and taking it more seriously, approaching it and treating it with the seriousness and respect that it deserves. So we'll see. I think with the general attitude of the public changing on the UFO topic, that enables more research to happen, that enables more scientists to worry less about their jobs and the ridicule that they'll face when spending time looking into this topic. I think that's happening. It has been happening. And in 5 years' time, man, yeah, I think for sure we'll be in a better place. I think we'll have a ton more information to add to the pile that we already have. And I certainly think UFOs will be in a better place in 5 years. Thanks for that question, James. It's awesome. So Terry, to answer your question, so yeah, I'm going to be at the International UFO Congress in February, just for the weekend, really doing some live coverage there, hopefully, and also doing some other projects. I don't know what UFO events do you guys go to? You know, there are several that happen all around the world, actually, and you know, certainly in the U.S. throughout the year. I know Contact in the Desert is happening this summer, and I probably won't make it to that event, but I might be in the area to see some people who will be there. But the International UFO Congress, and again, I'm biased because I was part of that for so many years. That's my favorite, and it's in my backyard, so it's easy for me to go and you know, see what's going on there. Hey, Scott, I'll answer that question. Yeah. So you're getting heat from insiders about Antarctica, about possible disclosure of archaeological sites they found. So that's funny. I mean, I've been hearing about Antarctica from people for so many years, and you know, a lot of angry people too, chastising me for not covering it as, you know, this earth-shattering information, and you know, of course, that probably stems from the fact that I'm obviously a reptilian, and I wouldn't want to disclose the location of my bases and things like that. I don't know. Again, man, it comes down to the source of the information, and the source I've seen is not really something that I'm losing any sleep over, and certainly not any of that person's audience. Certainly hasn't reached out to me in recent years. But yeah, man, I mean, a few years ago, both Maureen and I would get uh, hounded constantly from people wanting us to tell the truth about Antarctica. I know interesting things could potentially be happening there, but you know, we've heard claims about Antarctica from years and really haven't had any validated proof. All right, guys, I will wrap it up and leave you alone. Again, I will do this many more times in the future, and Maureen will join me, and so will a bunch of our other friends. Thanks for allowing me to test out um, new products that will allow us to do this. And keep your eyes on rogueplanet.tv, our website, for everything we do. And again, we have a Facebook group. That's our community where you can chime in, and you know, we can have conversations about the things that we discuss on all of our shows, our UFO podcast Unknown, our web series Spacing Out, and other shows soon to be announced. So thanks for hanging out, guys. Really appreciate it. Go to rogueplanet.tv, and as always, guys, I leave you with one wish, and that is for you to stay strange. Adios.